Welcome to today's episode, where we dive into the most jaw-dropping and shocking tales from Reddit. Today, we'll be exploring stories from the Just Know MIL subreddit, featuring insane mother-in-law encounters that will make your jaw drop. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the drama. Our first story comes from user1234, who shares their experience with their mother-in-law at their wedding. So, my wedding was a huge deal for my husband and me. We spent months planning every detail, from the venue to the flowers, the food, and even the guest list. The one thing that my husband specifically asked for was for his mother to not invite anyone who wasn't on the guest list. His mom agreed, but we were very wrong to trust her. The wedding day arrived, and everything was beautiful. The ceremony was going smoothly until I noticed a familiar face in the crowd. My husband's aunt, who we hadn't invited, was sitting at the reception table. I thought maybe she was a plus one for someone else, but no, my mother-in-law had invited her without asking. When I approached her, she had the nerve to say, "Oh, I didn't want her to feel left out." My husband was furious. He confronted his mom, and she didn't apologize. Instead, she claimed I was overreacting. We ended up spending the night trying to make the best of a situation caused by her lack of respect. The worst part? She never acknowledged how much stress she added to our day. Next, we have Lila Mary, who shares how her mother-in-law tried to control her life, even after she and her husband were married. "I've been married for 3 years now, and my mother-in-law is a nightmare. At first, I thought she was just trying to be helpful, but I soon realized she was trying to control everything. For example, after I had my first baby, she insisted on giving him a bath despite me telling her I had it handled. I'd tell her I was planning to do it myself, and she'd respond with, 'Well, I know better, dear.' When I'd take the baby for his nap, she would sneak into his room and rearrange his crib because she didn't like the way I had set it up. It didn't stop there. Every family event we attended, she would make suggestions about how I should dress, what I should eat, and even how I should raise my child. I've tried talking to my husband about setting boundaries, but he says I should just ignore her. But I can't. She's constantly overstepping, and it's exhausting trying to maintain peace while she keeps pushing her wisdom on me." This one comes from Quiet Rebel, who had a mother-in-law who just wouldn't leave. "My mother-in-law is a classic case of not knowing when to leave. After we had our second child, she insisted on staying with us to help, which turned into her living with us for over 2 months. I had hoped it would be a short visit, but she just wouldn't take the hint. She would barge into our room at all hours, rearranging our furniture, and leaving unsolicited advice on how to run our household. The worst part? She completely ignored any boundaries we set. I asked her to stop entering the nursery without asking, and she'd say, 'Oh, I'm your mother-in-law. I can do whatever I want.' I was at my breaking point. One day, I just broke down. I cried to my husband, and he finally stood up to her and told her it was time to leave. She didn't speak to us for weeks after that, but we finally had our space back. It's still a touchy subject, but we learned a valuable lesson. Some people just don't understand when it's time to go home." Here's Angela B., who shares a shocking tale of a gift exchange gone wrong. "Last Christmas, my mother-in-law gave me a gift that was, well, unexpected. We had been hinting for months that we needed a new vacuum cleaner, and I was really hoping she would pick one up for us. Instead, she gave me a small, beat-up blender that had clearly been used. When I opened it, she proudly said, 'I thought you could use this.' When I politely told her we were actually looking for a vacuum cleaner, she said, 'Well, I couldn't find one, and I thought you could use this for smoothies or whatever.' The awkwardness of the moment was unbearable. My husband was mortified, and I just didn't know how to react. She didn't apologize, and instead, she kept talking about how she'd found it on sale and thought it would be perfect. To this day, we still use that blender, but not because I love it, it's a reminder of her complete lack of awareness." Emily Jo shares how her mother-in-law never hesitates to offer unsolicited opinions, especially in public. "Every time we go to a family gathering, I brace myself for the inevitable critiques from my mother-in-law. She never holds back, especially when it comes to my cooking. One year, we hosted Thanksgiving dinner at our house, and I had spent hours preparing a beautiful feast. When I set the turkey on the table, she looked at it and said, 'Well, that looks dry. You should have cooked it longer.' Everyone at the table fell silent. It wasn't just one comment, she continued to nitpick everything I did, from the mashed potatoes to the dessert. I was furious, but what really got to me was that she did it all in front of my family. I've had enough of her public criticisms and have started setting boundaries, albeit awkwardly. Now for Kathy RL, who shares a story of her mother-in-law using guilt as a weapon with gifts. My mother-in-law has this weird habit of giving me gifts that come with strings attached. Last year, she gave me a beautiful, expensive necklace, but when I tried it on, she said, "I'm so glad you like it. I was thinking about how much you owe me for all the things I've done for you." She always brings up the sacrifices she's made for me, like how she helped me move into my house or how she raised my husband. And then, of course, when I try to politely decline her help, she gets upset and says, "Don't you appreciate all the things I've done?" It's draining, and it's hard to know what to do, turn her down and risk hurting her feelings or just accept the gift and keep the peace. I can't win. Lastly, we have Samantha W., who had a mother-in-law who went too far. After years of my mother-in-law making my life miserable, she crossed the line during a holiday dinner. My husband and I had been arguing a bit about spending more time with her, and when she heard us, she said, "If you ever choose her over your family again, I will make sure you're divorced." I was in complete shock. She had always been dramatic, but this? It was the last straw. My husband was furious with her, and we ended up leaving the dinner early. Later, he apologized to me, and we both agreed that we needed to set firm boundaries with her. It took some time, but she finally understood that her behavior was unacceptable. Thankfully, our marriage is stronger for it, but that moment was one I will never forget. And there you have it, some wild, unbelievable, and downright insane stories from the Just Know MIL subreddit. These are just a few examples of the kind of overbearing, rude, and inappropriate behavior that some people have to endure when it comes to their mother-in-laws. If you love these stories, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends.